Hey guys, it's Marcus and I am here today to give you guys my review on Henry's final drive for the Honda Goldwing GL1800 first and second generation. So the first thing I want to get in is my experience with it. One thing I would say is that it was a complete transformation from the Goldwing. It was as if this is what the bike has always needed since coming off the assembly line. As of right now, let's see, I have probably 3,500 miles on my new final drive, or on Henry's final drive, and it's just been amazing. I've seen an improvement in gas mileage, performance improvement as well. And just like I keep saying, you know, overall, just a more enjoyable bike, especially if you are a rider who tend to ride more highway speeds where your RPMs are much higher. One thing that I have noticed with the lower RPMs, it has been a fantastic thing. So when I first installed the final drive onto the bike, I had problems. It was like I was learning to ride the bike all the way over, knowing, okay, first gear is not as short, second gear is a little bit wider, you know, and even when I was coming off the interstate and my wife was riding on the back with me, I downshifted when I probably shouldn't have downshifted, and RPMs went sky high, and she's like, "You all right up there?" I said, "Yes," and I'm just learning it, still learning it over and over, right? So, but long story short, I did eventually get used to it. Some of the things that I also have noticed with myself, and a lot of my friends who's probably watching this already say that I kind of ride my Goldwing like a sports bike. It's kind of true. On the interstate, I do go a little bit faster, but even more so now, because at running at 80 miles an hour, I'm typically sitting at about 2,600 RPMs, 2,700 RPMs. And so you can't necessarily, if you've been riding Goldwings forever, especially if you have a first or second generation, you can almost hear or listen to your engine and tell how fast you're going, right? You can almost feel the motor going as well at those higher RPMs. Well, now I'm going by, sometimes it's not just the feel, but also you have to watch your gauge even more so, because you can notice that people look like they're going the opposite way because you're going so fast. It's like my new highway speed is like 85 miles an hour, but my RPMs is sitting at like 3,000, 3,100 RPMs. Right, we had our trailer behind us, we were two up, we were going down to a wedding, so the trailer was packed pretty nice. But we got essentially more gas mileage. So we had, I think right now, I would say, to give you a reference, is that by the time another person on a Goldwing without Henry's final drive, you probably have at least an eighth of a tank left. So you've gained an eighth of a tank in your fuel capacity, I would say, as you're traveling on the interstate. One thing that you're gonna notice that a lot of people may ask about is, what about your speedometer, right? Is it gonna be off? Well, yes, it will be off, but that's not the end of the world. What you can do is you can just get a speedo healer, and that speedo healer will adjust it, right? So for those who know about the speedo healer, you can go onto Amazon or even eBay. I saw them on Amazon for $100. So it's not too bad outside of what you're gaining, right? One thing though with Henry's final drive is the price of his work. But you're looking at about $1,500 out the door by the time it gets to your home, and then you spend the extra $100 on the Speedo. But he is working on getting a payment plan system through an outside company for those who may not have the $1,500 up front. So he is still working on that. You have to give him a call to see where he is on that process. Well, with myself riding one up without my trailer on a day trip from Chattanooga, Tennessee, all the way up here to outside of Lexington, which is approximately 240 miles. I had an extra tank in the saddlebag because I wanted to really push the bike to see how far if I can make it all the way home. And believe it or not, I did. Right about 245 miles, 255 miles, I got on one single tank on my 2006 Honda Goldwing. With that being said, I was not babying it. I was not being easy on the throttle. I was running 85 miles an hour. If I needed to get out in front of somebody and keep going, I would do that because I really wanted to test it to see, okay, if I'm doing a day trip, how far I can actually go. When I talk to some of my friends, they say, well, since he's elongated the gear ratios, how is it when you're in fifth gear? Do you still have a lot of power to be able to get around cars, or do you have to downshift and those type of things? Well, I will tell you that the Honda Goldwing has ample amount of power. We all know that. It almost seems like it was too much power for the original gear ratio, the OEM final drive, where in fifth gear, it didn't really feel like an overdrive. Whereas now it actually does feel like an overdrive. So with me going 85 miles an hour, now I am 2 up with my trailer on the back. I can run up going down south of 75, going up Jellicoe Mountain. If anybody who's been in that area, you know Jellicoe is a pretty big mountain on the interstate. I never once have to downshift out of fifth gear, running about 75 to 80 miles an hour through the mountains. Outside of just going through the mountains, on even just going down a normal road on the interstate at higher speeds, you still have a lot of what we would say get up and go without downshifting, because again, the Honda Goldwing has tons of power, right? So if you were worried about that, worry no more. When you have a lower RPM, everything in the motor tends to run much slower, right? And if you have a slower RPM or the motor is working less, then you have less wear and tear on your gears, less wear and tear on your alternator drive gear for those who have the first generation, and even some of us with the second generation. I am currently on my second alternator. Just to throw that out there, I have 110,000 miles that I have put on this bike myself. So I know everything about this bike, and I do a lot of the work, 90% of the work myself. So I see that as a benefit for long term, especially those who's not really looking to go and get the newer models, 2018s and up. Now that I have this better gear ratio, lower RPMs, better fuel economy, the same as the newer bikes, if not more on the fuel economy, and I still have all of my room and my creature comforts, and I don't have to spend all of the money starting over with getting the new bike to my likings, right? So this really helped drive or hold me in to keeping my bike virtual. So some people will ask about installation. How hard is it to install this final drive onto your bike? Okay, so with installing Henry's final drive onto your bike, as I said before, it's really simple. First thing that you want to do is remove your rear tire. So you'll remove the rear tire off of here. Once you've done that, there's 4 bolts. As you can see right there, that's 1 bolt there. And that bolt, yes, right here. There's 4 of them. There's 1 here, there's 1 right up beneath it, and there's 2 on the exact opposite side there. So in order to get to the ones on the other side, you would want to remove your right muffler. And after you remove that right muffler, you'll be able to get in and have access to these particular bolts here. One thing about it is that it is a little tight, because if you can see just a little bit there, it's kind of it's not a lot of room inside of the arm that's holding onto the final drive there. So once you get those 4 out of there, it will literally slide right off of there. Slide right off, okay? Of course, you want to make sure that you take your brake caliper and those things off as well. So as you can see, it's pretty simple to install it onto your bike. Only thing I would say is make sure that you don't make this simple mistake that I did that can cost you to start all the way over, is making sure that the final drive is inside of the shaft. If you put it in there and that wheel is still spinning after you put it in gear, or in reverse, or whatever you want to do, and if it still spins, that means that you don't have it in there. You're gonna have to take it all the way back apart and make sure that the final drive and the shaft is connected apart together. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, like it, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be putting out more information on not just on the whole van life movement, but also on the Honda Goldwing.